Okay, picture this. The vast, empty expanse of the South Atlantic. It's here that one of World War I's most decisive naval battles is about to go down. And this is a story that has it all. We're talking revenge, a massive technological mismatch, and a trap. A trap so perfectly sprung it would just annihilate an entire naval squadron. So you gotta ask, how did it all go so terribly wrong for the guys who just won their last big fight?
So, get this quote. "These will do nicely for my grave." Those are just haunting words of German Admiral Maximilian von Spee. But here's the really weird part. The truly puzzling thing is when he said it. He said this right after his greatest victory. Why on earth would a celebrated hero sound so doomed? Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind about a month to a defeat that made this whole quest for revenge pretty much inevitable.
Right. So, you see, the story of the Falkland Islands. It doesn't actually kick off with a British victory. Nope. It starts with a shocking, and I mean humiliating, British defeat.
So on November 1st, 1914, off the coast of Chile, von Spee's German East Asia Squadron just completely outfought a British force. Now, for the Royal Navy, we're talking the undisputed masters of the sea for a century. This was just unthinkable. It was a massive blow to their national pride and, a very real threat to their control of the oceans.
And the results? They were nothing short of catastrophic. We're talking 2 British armored cruisers sunk with all hands. The admiral went down with his ship. British naval prestige was in tatters. But even worse, a victorious German squadron was now just roaming free in the Atlantic. That's a huge threat to Allied shipping. So you can bet the Admiralty in London knew they had to respond. And their response was going to be swift, it was going to be secret, and, well, as we're about to see, it was going to be absolutely overwhelming.
Okay, so back in Britain, you've got the new First Sea Lord, Admiral Jackie Fisher, and he is furious. He is ready to settle the score. And he's not just going to send any old ships. Oh no. He's going to send the most powerful warships on the entire planet.
And what were they? Battle cruisers. This was a totally revolutionary idea at the time. I mean, think of it this way. You take the firepower of a battleship and you combine it with the speed of a cruiser. The result? They were faster, they were bigger, and they hit a whole lot harder than anything von Spee had in his fleet. They sailed under this total veil of secrecy, just racing 7,000 miles south with one simple mission: find him and destroy him. All right, let's just lay out the brutal math of what was about to happen. Look at this. The British battlecruisers, they're armed with these massive 12-inch guns. Compare that to the German 8.3-inch guns. I mean, that is a huge difference in hitting power. And then look at the speed, 25.5 knots versus 22.5. So not only are the British ships stronger, they're faster too. Let's be honest, this was never going to be a fair fight.
So what does all that mean in a real fight? Well, tactically, it's just devastating. The British battle cruisers could basically stand off at a distance, way out of range of the German guns, and just pulverize them. The German shells would just splash harmlessly into the sea, nowhere near their target. And the real kicker? Because the British were faster, there was absolutely nowhere for the German squadron to run. It's like a heavyweight boxer with a longer reach fighting someone who can't even get close enough to land a punch.
So the stage is set. The hunters are lying in wait. And now, the story swings back to Admiral von Spee and the single fateful decision that would seal his squadron's doom.
Now, you have to understand von Spee's situation. Yeah, he was being celebrated as a hero in neutral Chile, but he was a realist. He knew his victory at Coronel was kind of lucky. He'd used up half his ammunition, he was thousands of miles from a friendly port, and he had a pretty good suspicion the British were out there hunting for him with much better ships. In fact, most of his captains were begging him, "Sir, let's just make a run for Germany."
But he didn't listen. In a move that, frankly, still baffles historians to this day, Spee decided to make one last defiant gesture. He was going to launch a surprise raid on the small British coaling station at Stanley in the Falkland Islands. The plan was to smash their radio mast, grab their coal, and then just disappear. He was acting on intelligence that said the port was totally undefended. He had no idea he was sailing directly into the lion's den.
And so, on the bright, clear morning of December 8th, 1914, the German squadron sails towards the Falklands. They are completely, totally unaware that the most powerful naval force in the entire southern hemisphere had just arrived the day before. The timing is just unbelievable. The first sign that something is very, very wrong comes from a really unexpected source.
See, the British had this old battleship, HMS Cannabis, that they'd basically run aground in the harbor to act as a floating fort. And its 12-inch guns suddenly opened fire, lobbing these huge shells over a hill at the German ships. Just like that, the element of surprise, poof, gone.
And then comes the moment of pure, stomach-dropping horror for the Germans. As the smoke from the British ships who were just refueling in the harbor, as that smoke starts to clear, their lookouts see it. The one thing they dreaded seeing more than anything else in the world. The tall, unmistakable trapod masts that could only belong to British dreadnoughts and battlecruisers. The trap had just been sprung.
You know, what happened next wasn't really a battle in the traditional sense. It was a chase, a relentless long-range pursuit across the open ocean, and the outcome was never, ever in doubt.
So, at 10 a.m., the chase is on. For hours, the faster British ships just keep gaining. By early afternoon, von Spee knows it's hopeless. He can't outrun them. So, in a final, incredibly gallant act, he turns his two big armored cruisers, the Scharnhorst and the Grindesnau, to fight. He's trying to buy time for his smaller, light cruisers to get away, but it was no use. By just after 4 in the afternoon, his own flagship is sunk, and the rest of his squadron is just hunted down one by one through the evening.
The German losses were just staggering. 1,871 sailors were killed, and that includes Admiral von Spee himself and both of his sons who were serving on 2 of the other ships. The entire family wiped out in one afternoon.
And the British losses? Just 10 men. 10. The sheer lopsidedness of that victory is just absolute. It was a brutal, brutal demonstration of what happens when superior technology goes up against courage.
So, the battle was over. British honor was restored. But in the aftermath, as everyone tried to piece together what happened, a critical question started to emerge. A mystery that, honestly, still kind of lingers to this day.
I mean, just look at the final scoreboard. It was a near-total annihilation of the German East Asia Squadron. Only one light cruiser, the Dresden, managed to slip away for a little while along with one of their supply ships. And strategically, the result was huge. Germany's only permanent overseas naval squadron was gone. Their ability to attack Allied shipping on the high seas with actual warships was basically over. From this point on, they'd have to turn to things like U-boats and those disguised merchant raiders. For the time being, the surface of the seas was secure again.
But that big question just won't go away. Why did Spee attack? Even his own high command back in Germany was baffled. We know he thought the port was undefended. But here's where it gets really interesting. Years later, a fascinating detail came out. British naval intelligence, the legendary Room 40, had already broken the German naval codes. They were reading Spee's mail, so to speak. And it's now widely believed that they might have sent a fake signal, pretending to be from a German agent, that deliberately lured Spee to the Falklands with that false information about the harbor being empty.
And that leaves us with one final, tantalizing question. Was the destruction of von Spee's squadron simply the result of a tragic miscalculation by its commander? Or was it actually one of the very first and most devastatingly successful examples of signals intelligence in modern warfare? A perfectly executed ambush planned thousands of miles away in a quiet little room in London.